You know, this is the final talk on the series that we've been doing for the last weeks on prayer as expressed by Meister Eckhart. If any of you know him, a philosopher and a mystic, and he wrote many books. He put out many lectures, many sermons, many beautiful ideas, and there was one idea underneath them all, and that was his idea. So if you don't want to read everything he's ever written, hear this sentence, memorize this sentence, and you basically got his teaching. And his teaching is this, that God, the presence of God, is available and present and found in every individual soul. And we'll do it again. The presence of God is present and available in every individual soul, which is what we are. And what he's saying, if you are looking for the presence of God, you'll find it, and you'll find it in yourself. And he's not talking about that in a conceptual way at all. Because the concept of God in me and God as me is actually not going to do you any good. I mean, it's fascinating, but it's not going to do you any worldly good. But the moment you take that concept, which he spent his whole adult life proclaiming and explaining and declaring and teaching, the moment you take that concept inside and you understand that he's speaking directly to you, your soul, that if you're looking for the power and the presence of life itself, if you're looking for the will of life, the force of life, the movement of life, the matrix of energy that is filled with dynamic possibility, you have no further to look than within yourself. And it's such a radical idea. Because, man, we go out our front door and we listen to the news and we read the paper, we look at the unemployment stats, we hear the recession is over. Well, you know what? It is for Wall Street, but it's not necessarily for the average person. We look at how happy the world tells us we should be if we have a nice apartment and a nice car, and we go home, we find out we're not happy. We see all these happy relationships going on, and ours isn't a happy one. We walk out our door, and this idea of spirit within me, the divine within me, as me, within me, through me, as my individual soul. It makes no sense at all when there's so many things we don't have and so many limitations. So we say, great concept, but what does that actually even have to do with me today? How is that even applicable? There's a story that Buddhists tell, and you're going to recognize this story, except this has a little twist on it because it's told by an Australian Buddhist. Okay? Australian Buddhist added his own flourish to it, and it definitely changes the story a bit. A man is being chased by a tiger. This is the story. A man's being chased by a tiger. And he's running away. And he comes upon a well, a deep well, and he thinks, I'll jump in, I'll float in the water until the tiger gets tired and goes away, and then I'll come out of the well. Well, he jumps into the well, and he doesn't realize that there's no water in the well. So as he's going halfway down, he realizes it's a dry well. He grabs onto a branch that is sticking out from the well, and he's holding on to it with two hands for dear life. And he looks down into what should be a well full of water, and what he sees is a poisonous snake coiled on the bottom of the well. Begin to sound like Mondays in New York, right? You got a tiger coming at you, a poison well on the bottom, and on the little branch that he's holding, as if that's not bad enough, and we say that as if that's not bad enough, there's a mouse at the edge of the branch nibbling at the branch, right? And it'll be a matter of time until it nibbles it away, right? That's how the story starts. And that is sometimes exactly how we feel between a rock and a hard place. We're working, we're trying to make things happen, we're doing the right things, we are trying to be good people, we are certainly banging on doors, we're doing our part, and for one reason or another, it just seems that things are not working out. We're being squeezed in our life from different directions. That love we seek, we can't find it. It can't find us. Or that money we wish we had for retirement because we're not getting any younger. We wish we had accumulated it, but it hasn't worked out that way. We've needed it to live on. Right? Those dreams that we had, or maybe we wish we even had the dreams. We're not even sure what they are because life keeps us so busy with so many things we have to do in a day. By the time we get home, we don't have time to sit and dream and sit and vision. We're just hoping to get to bed, to watch a little TV, and to start all over the next day because life is so full. There's so many plates spinning in the air. A tiger, a snake, a mouse. And what you think you should do and what we should do are actually two completely different things. And that's where the story tells us something so counterintuitive, because what we think we should do in our life is work harder. Try harder. Make something happen harder. And that is the antithesis of what you're about to hear in this story. And it's also the antithesis of what Meister Eckhart teaches when he talks about prayer. Because in the last weeks, where he started with prayer was he didn't start with ask for what you want. He didn't start with ask for what you want. He didn't start there at all. If you're going to start any prayer tonight, the moment you leave here this evening, tomorrow morning when you get out of bed, if you're going to start any prayer, do not start with what you want. Start with who you are. Find out, discover, he said, what is within you. That's where we start. You say, God, we've got a tiger chasing us up above. If I go up the well, I'm screwed. Maybe it's a job that if I don't watch myself, there are younger people coming along, they'll take my job. Or somebody new was just hired and they don't like me for whatever reason. We got a tiger on top and we got a poisonous snake that used to be maybe our best friend. And for one reason or another slept with the person that we used to be with. And suddenly they're a poisonous snake. And that's down below us. And we've got a little mouse chewing off our little hold on the little we have. The little we have, we don't even ask for much. We have lowered our standards so many times that even when we start asking for things, we begin to wonder, am I asking for too much? Is it too much to ask for a guy who's like not an alcoholic? You know, who's got a full set of teeth? Is that too much to ask? A guy who actually has a job? I don't know. We start to think we're asking too much. And we're holding on to our life. We're not living, thriving. We're surviving. We're barely sometimes holding on. And where we want to go with prayers, we want to go immediately to asking for what we want. Give me what I don't have. And he said, don't go there. The first place you want to go is discover who you are. Go to your biggest thought about the biggest place within you. Discover, take out of hiding, find out who you are and declare that. He calls it announce that. And what is he saying? He's saying that the divine that you think you're praying to, you already are. Don't be praying to something outside of yourself, because what you're praying to, you're actually praying from, because that divinity dwells within you. It's a game changer when we announce that. We discover what's in us and then we announce that. God is, Eric Butterworth did it so simply and it's beautiful. He did it in 2 lines. God is, I am. Man, that's a brilliant opening prayer. And leave it to Eric Butterworth. He was such a great teacher. He took the greatest, biggest concepts and put them into a sentence so we could get it. God is, I am. I am what God is. God is what I am. 2 sentences, and the more you repeat them, or as Meister Eckhart says, the more you announce them, the more you come to believe them. Because in the beginning, they're just going to be words. They're going to be words that we kind of understand in our mind, but we won't be able to feel it until we start announcing it. And you start announcing, I am what God is. God is what I am. I am what God is and God is what I am, it becomes a prayer in and of itself. He says when you announce that and you pronounce that, what you are doing is awakening your own mind and bodily senses to the truth of what that feels like. Because it's not enough just to say it, because they're just words. They're black and white words. They don't have much meaning. They're not going to do you any good at all, really. They begin to do you good, he says, in the announcing and the pronouncing of it when you get them out of hiding. How wonderful that God is your individual soul. But until you know it, until you feel it, until you hear yourself say it, until it comes to life as a feeling inside of you so that those words become not just truth, they become true for you. By the time you get to asking for what you want, you have gone from the consciousness of I don't have, I'm hanging by a thread, I'm hanging on a branch. Some of us are just barely a paycheck away from living on somebody else's couch. Don't kid yourself. Some of us are just barely on the side of not calling it in and saying, you know what? Life, too hard. If I don't wake up tomorrow morning, that is so okay with me. We had a class, and there was a young girl. She was 23, 24, a beautiful Latin girl. And she stood up in the middle of that class and blew everybody's mind, because here's what she said. I wake up every morning, and she said, I am so upset to find that I woke up this morning. She said, every night I go to bed, and I go to bed with the same wish, which is, you know what, this is too hard for me. This hanging on to a branch, this Buddhist story, I mean, it's an interesting idea about a man in a well, a man in a hole, but that man sometimes ends up being who we are. We're holding on because life is difficult, especially if we don't understand what things mean, if we don't understand who we are, and we let the world tell us who we are. Man, it tells us already we're too old, we're too black, we're too white, it's over, it's not going to happen. You should have done it before. What a mistake you made. You can never forgive yourself. The world's not going to forgive you. You should have done it when you were younger. Oh, what a childhood. With that childhood, it's never going to happen. With that bank account, you're never going to make it work. With that body, oh, forget about it. Down the line, we are told how we don't measure up. And here's Meister Eckhart. And by the way, here is every single philosophy and teaching and true religion in its essence. It says the exact opposite. God is what you are, and you are what God is. Meaning, when you get up in the morning, do not turn on the television. Do not turn on the radio. When you get up in the morning, do not listen to the voice of the world telling you its bottom line. Because the world's bottom line, frankly, is not your bottom line. It really isn't. Your bottom line is to remember each and every day who you are, to discover what dwells within you. Because, man, when you discover what dwells within you, you walk out of your house and you understand there are no limitations. At whatever your age, at whatever your weight, whatever your orientation, whatever your history, whatever you've done, none of that makes a difference. Because when you discover what is inside of you, you discover that the world of all possibility dwells inside of you. The matrix of all possibility. The oneness, the unity of all possibility, the limitlessness, the boundlessness of life itself, that's what we are. And when you connect to that, instead of 10-10 wins, right? Or instead of whatever the latest disaster is or the latest piece of advertising telling you what you need in order to become whole and complete and happy, when you go to the place inside of you and let your voice be the first voice you hear, Your voice announcing and pronouncing who you truly are. You're not going to find that you're going to be holding on to a branch for the rest of your life, even if you spent the last 10 years or 20 years just surviving, just holding on, just making it. That is not what we've come for. That is not who we are. That's not what dwells within us. The limitlessness of life itself dwells within us. Now, we can live limited, or we can begin to change that, and that's why prayer is so practical and so essential. And we don't look at all at prayer as something absolutely integral to every single moment of our day. We think it's something to do just when, something hits the fan. It is meant to be our first stop in the day so we can climb up the mountain as it was written in the Old Testament. And man, there are a handful of great lines in the Old Testament. I mean, I'm not going to sit down and have you read the book, because let me have done that for you at least a dozen times over the years. But there are moments in the Old Testament that are shockingly beautiful, and one is, in the morning, come up the mountain and present yourself there to me. That's stunning. In the morning, take your consciousness as high as it can go. God is about one of the highest things you can start with. What I am, that is one of the highest places you can hang your hat on to begin to come back to who you are. Because when you announce that, when you pronounce that, Meister Eckhart says, then you begin to produce the kind of life you want, and you produce it from that consciousness. You produce it from the mountaintop. We present ourselves to the highest idea, to the highest truth of who we are. And we present ourselves, the line says, Spirit said this to Moses, present yourself there to me face to face. It doesn't get realer than that. Face to face. Let us come face to face with the truth about who we are. And then when you want to produce something in your day, you will produce it. And then when you want to give birth to something, you will give birth to it, but you're going to give birth to it from a totally different consciousness than I need, then help me, then save me, then rescue me. Because that's what you feel like when you're inside a well and on all sides you're trapped. So the Australian Buddhist puts this twist on the story. He says the man is holding on for dear life, and he turns to the side, and there, on the very edge against the wall where the branch is growing out of, is a beehive. And so many bees are in it. There's honey just dripping down the sides of it. And what he does in that moment is he leans over and he licks some of the honey that's dripped onto the branch. Now, here's what's crazy. We say, yeah, I'll do something sweet when everything turns around in my life. You know what? When I get that raise, things will be sweeter for me. You know what? When this tiger is gone, or this poisonous snake is no longer here, or I've figured out how to get revenge on that person who's hurt me, or how to be, a certain way so my job will lift me up, or how to fix this, or how to fix that. We figure out, as soon as I figure out how to get rid of all of these dangers in my life, then of course, like everybody else, I'll take great care of myself. I'll do something wonderful. Sure, I'll do what I want. And here's the thing, it never works that way. Because when we are in the consciousness of danger, of survival, of just existing, of believing that God is somewhere other than where we are. And I don't mean God near me, I mean God in me, God through you, God as you. We never get out of the well. There's always going to be somebody chasing us. There's always going to be something missing. There's always going to be something wrong. When we're in a well in consciousness. And as long as we think we're in the well and we have to call out for somebody to help us, we will always be in a well. We will always be in a jam. There's always going to be a tiger. There's always going to be a snake. There's always going to be a mouse. And we're always just going to be hanging on. It's a way of life. And it was not intended that we live that way. It was not intended, and I'll tell you why. Because every single mystic and every single truth teaching and every single philosophy gets back to this same teaching that the divine, the one mind, the Buddha nature, the Tao itself dwells within you. And if it dwells within you, you don't belong in a well unless you insist or unless you forgot. The last stage for Meister Eckhart, the last stage is after you announce, after you pronounce, after you begin to produce, you begin to give birth to the life you want. And nothing could feel farther from the truth. And you think, well, if I'm going to give birth, man, I got to get to work. And what this story is telling us is you don't have to get to work on working harder. You've worked so hard, you've dug yourself into a hole. Right? All the good work you've done, you reach this point in your life, you think you should be thriving. Man, we've reached the point of diminishing returns. It's like our life is getting smaller. What's wrong with this picture? We're working harder, we're making less, our life is shrinking, we're getting angry, we're getting hard, we're getting bitter. And we used to be glass half full people, and you know what? A lot of us aren't glass half full people anymore. And we're told, reach for the honey now. Now is the time to reach for the honey. And I'll tell you something. The beautiful thing about this teaching is that this is exactly what the law of attraction says. It says anything it is you want to attract, become that thing now. The teachings of Ernest Holmes' spiritual mind treatment, which we talk a lot about, spiritual mind treatment, treating your own mind. He doesn't even call it prayer, he calls it treatment, treating your own mind. He says the exact same thing. He says in order to attract what it is you want, you need to be open to receive that thing. And when we are holding on for dear life, we are whatever the opposite of open is. We are so not open. We are so closed. We are so fearful. We are so angry. We are so frightened. We are so resentful. Oh my God, how did we get here? And it is only by reaching for that which is sweet now, does something amazing and miraculous happen. It's going to seem so simple. You're going to go, oh, that's so simple. That was not worth $10 tonight, right? You know? Right? Something so simple. When we reach for that which is sweet, that which we would love to do in this moment, if only the whole world of our life were different, that which we've been dreaming of, God, wouldn't it be wonderful to just have that thing, eat that thing, do that thing, have that dinner, see that person, make that call, do that wonderful thing, whatever the thing is that in the moment would bring you sweetness. When you do it, here's what's crazy. You open. You open. And the law of attraction calls it you allow. And Ernest Holmes calls it you release. Literally, you stop holding to the branch for dear life. And we think if we stop holding on the branch for dear life, things are going to collapse. We're going to fall. We'll be bitten by the snake. The tiger will jump in. Right, the old joke, everybody knows the old joke. The man is holding on to the branch and he finally calls out to God and he says, you know, is there anybody up there? And a voice calls back down, yes, from the heavens. Yes, there is. I'm here. He says, oh my God, thank God, he said, tell me what to do. Whatever it is you tell me to do, I'll do. And he's holding on for dear life, and there's a crevasse underneath him. He can't even see the bottom of it. And the voice says, let go. And the man says, is there anybody else up there Right? We're always told to do the same thing, and it is so counterintuitive, and we think, what are you, crazy? I'm not going to let go. And yet, it's our holding on for dear life that keeps our fists closed to what wants to come in, and what wants to come in is the answer to your prayer. But it can't, because we're holding so tightly to this subsistence level life, calling it a life, because we're listening to the voices that tell us indeed we are victims of circumstance. We are victims of the law of averages. We are victims just like the other sheep in the world. Things happen, bad things happen. What are you going to do? When we start listening to a different voice, that voice from within our own self, it will tell us counterintuitively to let go for a moment and go out and have your 16 handles frozen yogurt, right? It doesn't make a difference. Have it. You want it? Have it right now, it'll say. There's a woman I know who isn't here tonight, or else she would verify this. She listens to the voice of that place inside of her that tells her what it loves to do, even if it is the most inopportune time. She said, I want to get in the Jeep. One night she said, let's get in the Jeep, because the feeling of being in the Jeep with the top down and the wind blowing through her hair, it's such a good feeling. But you think, she said, how can I have that feeling when 2 people in my office just quit and I don't have replacements for them and I don't know who I'm going to hire? And this voice inside said, take a ride. Why don't you take a ride? Because I love the feeling of the wind in my hair. And you think, how will that help me? That's another way of saying let go for a moment. And we don't want to let go. And here's the thing, when we don't want to let go, what happens is we are praying, but we are not letting go for even a moment, releasing that prayer, opening our hands so that we can receive a piece of that answer the very moment our hand is open. We think I'll open my hand when the 2 new employees come. But we're not asked to open our hand when they come. We're asked to open our hand in this moment. In this moment where it's actually going to change the game for us. Because our prayer isn't released until the moment we open our hand. Our prayer isn't released. We haven't let it go until the moment we open. And we think, oh, this was a beautiful prayer. I felt it. I loved it. I got it. I got it as I am. Whoa, August would be so proud. This feels so real. I'm sweating and crying. And you're working yourself up into a lather. But if you don't let it go, if you do not open your hand, if we do not let go of the branch for a moment, we cannot be in receivership of that which wishes to come in, which is right here. We think our good, our answer is somewhere far away in the horizon, in Trenton or in California or Malibu or Jerusalem. It's right here. What it is we're looking for is right here, but we have to do something that feels terrifying, but it's the only way for us to give birth to the answer of our prayer, and that's let go. That's let go of whatever it is. And it doesn't say let go forever. It says let go for a moment. So she hopped in the Jeep, and she let the wind blow her hair. She did that one night. The next thing that was asked from that voice inside of her when she put her prayer out was, I love lobster. And we haven't had lobster, and we're waiting for somebody to date us, to take us to a lobster dinner, because she was single. It's like, oh my God, when this guy comes, I am so having a lobster dinner. And the point is, you can have the lobster dinner tonight. Let's go for lobster dinner tonight. What's so crazy about that is she rediscovered in that evening her tremendous love of fish. So now, 8 months later, she calls herself, I think it is, a pescatarian. Is that right? She eats fish every day. It is something that makes her body so happy. And that was from the voice that simply said, take a little bit of the honey right now. Lobster dinner. And you say, who has the time? Who has the money? I'm all worried. It can't work out. Maybe later. He licked the honey in the direst circumstance of his life. And something opens, because when we let go even a little, when we release, the end of every prayer is I release and I let it go. And we think it's something we do and then we do it forever. We release and we let go like about every 5 minutes, because the moment we release it, we're already watching the clock and taking it back. You know that. You put the prayer out and it's like, is it here? Right? You're waiting, and then if it's not here, it's like late. And like, what's up with that? And we think our life is going to be sweet and joyous when that prayer is answered. And what we don't understand is it can be sweet and joyous right in this moment. Tiger, snake, branch with a mouse on it, it can be sweet right now. And we say, how? And it says, look around and listen. What would you love? What would make you happy in this moment? It's a momentary happiness. She's a professional woman, and one of the things that came to her was, during the day, I love music. And she had turned off all music because everybody was working and she wanted everybody to be working in her office. She put the music on in her office because she remembered how happy music makes her, and she brought that happiness into her office. And not only did productivity not go down, of course it didn't go down. Her productivity went up because she was listening to music that made her so happy. Did it bring the two people faster to her, or did it make her not watch the clock until the two right people appeared? See, the answer to our prayer doesn't come when the answer to our prayer comes. It comes the moment we let go of the branch for a moment and we open ourselves up to the possibility of doing one sweet thing for ourselves. In doing so, an opening happens in us. We are actually in the act, unbeknownst to us, in the act of doing the fifth step of the spiritual mind treatment from Ernest Holmes, which is release it and let it go. And when we are doing something like that, we are in a place of happiness. We're in a place of appreciation. We're in a place, and hear this word because there's an enormous teaching in prosperity just on this word. We are in a place of the I have consciousness. Not I don't have, not I need, not I want, but I have. Because in the moment when the wind is blowing through her hair, in the moment when you're eating your lobster dinner or you're having your 16 handles, yogurt, in the moment when you have your music on, in the moment when you're doing something for yourself for no other reason than it's sweet and it makes you happy for a moment, in that moment, you are in the place of having the happiness you are waiting for this answer to your prayer to bring you. In that moment, you're in the I have consciousness, and that's what it's called, the I have consciousness. And when you're in the I have consciousness, the law of attraction will tell you, man, you're a vibrational match to that which you want. Because now you're not saying it, I don't have it. Now you're not saying I need it. Now you're saying, even for a moment, for the time it takes to eat a little yogurt, in that moment, you're feeling the happiness of what you have. You're feeling the fullness of the have. You're feeling the appreciation of the have, and it's not fake. You're not sitting and visualizing yourself, and here comes the guy who's going to love you, or the girl's going to, and oh, look at him put his arms around me. You're not doing that. You're in a moment giving yourself something that makes you happy, taking the time to give yourself something that makes you so happy, and you're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for no reason other than it's sweet and you want it. How can life, by the law of attraction, not respond to you in kind? Because you're already in the vibration of I have. You're already in the vibration of that happiness you think isn't here until that person comes. And then at lunchtime, she began to take walks. so she could listen to her music uninterrupted. And this is unheard of. She's self-employed, and never in 20 years has she ever left her office to take a walk for no reason, to not make any money. It's a billable hour, for God's sakes. It's a billable hour. And she's walking all around, up and down the blocks, because she loves to walk. And she's forgotten how much she loves to walk until she put the headphones on and needed a reason to get out of the office and began to listen to music. And it was a hop, skip, and a jump until she remembered how much she loved to travel. And it's like, who's got time to travel and who can give up, when you're self-employed, every week you take off, you count out the money you're not making. It kills you. It breaks your heart. It's like, I could have been making $3,000 this week and here I am in Italy. She went and took her trip. And she took her trip because it started by taking a Jeep ride. It started by having a lobster dinner. It started when she began, little by little, to reach out for something sweet now. See, Maya Angelou says something interesting. She says, you do not go to the place of becoming courageous by stepping out in your life and doing a wild, courageous thing. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. What you do is you step out of your house and you do one teeny little courageous thing. She said, you could no more go into the gym and lift 100-pound weight. What you do is you go into the gym and you pick up 10 pounds at a time. Over the course of time, 10 becomes 15, then 15 becomes 20 or 25. And she said, perhaps by the end of 8 months or a year, maybe you're up to 100 pounds. And she said it's the same thing. And that's the premise of what Meister Eckhart is saying. He's saying to give birth to something, you need to release it. And in order to release it, you need to practice with sweet moments of having happiness, sweet moments of having what you want, sweet moments of fulfilling yourself. All those feelings you're hoping will come with the answer to your prayer, you have the opportunity in each moment to offer to yourself one a day. We're not going to go out and release the biggest prayer we put out and walk around totally open and free and released. That's not going to happen. But in these little singular moments, we can do it. Because these singular moments added up to a vacation. And she has never taken a vacation in her life. And what direction did it put her in? It put her in the direction of love, the very thing that had eluded her whole life. And how did she do it? By losing 20 pounds? No. Changing the color of her hair? No. Liposuction, love handles? Putting her feet in smaller shoes, waxing, bikini waxing? Dermabrasion? No. Plucking more? No. She didn't do any of these outside things. The whole thing was an inside job. It's all an inside job. So when the man in the well with the tiger above him leaned over to just lick the sweetness of the honey in the middle of his dire circumstances, here's what happened. He leaned over in that moment to lick the honey from the hive that was dripping on the branch. And at that exact moment, the tiger got it into its mind to lunge. And when it lunged, he had moved to the side to lick the honey. It missed him entirely when it lunged into the well, and it landed at the bottom of the well. And there the tiger and the snake did their thing and took each other out. And with no tiger above him any longer, because it had missed him in the moment that he opened to give himself that sweetness, he could make his way out of the well. We don't make our way out of our dire circumstances when the answer to our prayer comes, ever. That's a concept. Oh man, when the guy comes, when the car comes. It happens the very day we pray in a certain way. And then we release that prayer in a certain way by entering into the consciousness of that released, opened, allowing state by simply giving ourselves a bit of sweetness today. Not another day, today. Not waiting for anybody to give it to us. Ourselves. We give it to ourselves. We do it for ourselves. And then we build up the ability to have the courage to keep doing these little courageous acts of self-kindness and sweetness and love. And by the time we're done, here's what happens. By the time we're done, the answer to our prayer comes. Not because, it took 3 months and you waited the 3 months because that's how long it takes to get a guy or a better job. We receive the answer to our prayer because by that point we've become the answer to our prayer. We've become it. And man, that is the teachings in a nutshell. We need to become that which we pray for. And as we do so and become it, we become the vibrational match for that thing we pray for. It is elegant, it is beautiful, but we need to let it go. And we let it go in the moments. We take this open hand and we give something sweet to ourselves. Enough said. So cool, isn't it? Thank you so much for coming. Oh my God, so happy to have you here.